when I found this out, I was just like, wow, wait a minute. Let me process this. And also, wait a minute. Why do I feel so heard and seen right now for the first time ever in my life, Something that validates how I've been operating. Thus now knowing that that is something of the past and then that is nothing to do with the present right now gives me so much more freedom. And I hope this video gives to you as well. So let me just preface with like everything that I'm about to share and say, it's just information. It's just information. And the most important thing is that you check in with your heart, you check in with yourself and your gut to see if that information resonates with you. So, and maybe I take it the reason why you clicked on this video is because there is some truth, a golden nugget in this video that might like change your perspective about something, thus opening up your world. Yeah. What I'm talking about, the type of work that I get to do with my clients, and it's more tapping into the somatic intelligence, soma meaning the body. And my main goal when I'm working with my clients is for them to feel at home with themselves, for them to marry their mind and their body so that it has a awesome relationship, right? The most pristine, perfect, intimate relationship. Thus, their essence, their spirit shines through and living the most sparkly, authentic life. That voice that says you should do something, you ought to do something because someone else is doing something, or that there's something wrong with you, that's not going to be there. So, the thing that I wanted to inform you, educate you about is the type of trauma that is the most insidious, I would say, is the trauma of neglect. And specifically, I'm talking about developmental trauma. Developmental trauma is the trauma that happens during your from conception to childhood years when you are developing your brain, still developing your body, right? So neglect is very hard to detect because we don't look for it, because we can't point back to a certain event. It's not like some kind of shock trauma like a car accident or something, an event that happened one time. Developmental trauma could be something that has happened over and over and over again, therefore chronic. And it's something so small, but big T, small t's are all the same. It's a story that we have, right? And so I wanted to share with you. Well, first, I want to share with you, and this isn't something to be fixed, rather, have this be an exploration and a discovery of what your life could look like, of what you prefer your life to be, right? This might be the thing that was in your way. Like, how they say, stop being in your own way. And sometimes we need other people to show us the things that has had us be in our own way. So here it is. When we're talking about emotional neglect as children, it's generally grouped together as abuse. And this is something that one of my clients also pointed to too as well, is that she notices that the first sign of trauma in general is this neglect or being ignored. And then when that is chronic and is persistent, then you are more prone to abuse, physical, emotional, mental, verbal abuse, right? Or those types of things. When the origin of neglect is rooted in early pre-verbal development, meaning before we even knew how to speak and our brains aren't fully developed to know how to speak yet. Your caretakers, your mom, your dad, maybe they were dealing with something that, by the way, this is not a pointing to your finger to your parents type of thing. This isn't what I'm trying to express or trying to say. I'm just giving you some relief that this is something that might empower you, right? So maybe your parents are busy working, and by the time they're done with their day and they get to you, they feel just so tired that they forget to connect. And that's one of the things why my channel and my work is here, is for that solid connection, like deep human connection. That's what I stand for. And so we need to like look at this kind of stuff together, right? Adults ignored as children. Since neglect is absence, then these adults don't know what is missing in their lives. They just don't know what's missing. they're habituated to lack. It's like normal for them. It's normal being in need, and they don't know that they need this. We don't know that we need somebody showing us the ways. We just think we exist until we learn how to talk, and then we start sort ourselves out. But like the body knows though. The body knows that it has these needs emotionally because your organs generate your emotions. And so your body knows. But because absence, neglect was there, you don't know what's missing. Adults emotionally ignored as children lack words to express their inner experience, don't feel welcomed, they don't feel like they belong. They had caregivers who do not perceive or meet their needs. Possibly they don't have a reliable caregiver, someone that they could always count on and trust. And they don't think of themselves as valuable, kind of like feeling like you're always a burden. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. Adults ignored as children, no one was there for them to reach out to for help or support. Either maybe they were there, like let's say, hey mom, I need this, I need this, and your mom's like always on the phone. In my case, my mom's always working and she worked her ass off to get us the things that we need. And she didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with me. Sometimes adults ignored as children had to be the parent themselves, had to parent themselves really early on, or maybe even parent their parents. You know, they had to like grow up fast. They were on their own and had to look after themselves. And adults ignored as children, they don't understand what's wrong with them because they don't remember that anything bad happened to them. And that's the insidious part. It's like, there's nothing bad that happened to me. I grew up in this a safe place. I had a roof over my head. We always had food in the pantry, in the kitchen. I was always fed well. I always was hydrated or whatever, right? I had friends, but nothing dramatic happened. So I don't know what's wrong with me. This is what I'm pointing to. This is like, oh, but yet you had this profound terror and anxiety that something is like not right or something's missing, or that you feel like you don't belong, you feel like you're the black sheep. The adaptations that we use to survive as children who were neglected or ignored are usually quiet, introverted, polite to a fault. You might avert your gaze, like it's hard for you to hold eye contact with people, um, and sometimes generally not connected to their bodies or their feelings because they don't have the language for them. I'm not laughing, I'm just saying that's so relatable to me. Adults neglected as children live in a state that is similar to burnout. It's like this constant feeling of like, there's too much to do. I don't have all the resources that I can. This is all the things that I have to do, and there's only one of me, and it just feels so tiring. This is a survival adaptation. You also could have deficits in capacity for social relationships. Yep. The introvertedness, the like socially awkward, all of that stuff, that is a survival adaptation for kids who have trauma of being neglected. But you know what? There's no way we would know. We didn't have camcorders back then, or we're not always being vlogged or whatever. There's no way we could have known. And we don't want to get into that stuff. We don't want to be like, let me just sit and meditate and have that memory come up to me and like have it be. There's no solid proof, y'all. The thing is, like, if this resonates with you, let's like maybe try on something. Like, I'm only giving this information to empower you. Reminder. So, also for the neglected, you might not look for comfort in being with other humans. You might just want to be alone by yourself. You have the source of comfort is with you, maybe, or with a book or with an instrument, but it's not with other humans. Even though children of neglect have a strong yearning for connection, they just do not trust closeness. and they have little sense to know how to engage collaboratively. It's hard for them to do teamwork stuff. It's hard for them to, it's literally in their brains like they can't function in a social setting because they don't trust closeness, yet they really want to be connected, right? And thus you might like suffer from imposter syndrome or like having a super harsh inner critic. And from all of that, from all of the things that I have shared thus far, all of these survivable adaptations, all of these clues that neglect could have been the trauma that you've had and just didn't know because like you don't know what you don't know, right? All of that might be why you don't like being seen or you have a fear of being exposed. And then like any type of exposure can trigger huge amounts of shame. Does that ever happen to you? Like you post something or you share something about yourself and almost immediately this deep sense of shame overcomes your body or your heart or your like yourself. You just want to hide out. Is like right when you want to share something that you're excited about and you're like, "Oh shit, I want to retract that and I want to go back and hide in my cave." Yeah. Crippling shame. So, this feeling of unwantedness leads to toxic shame. And this could happen when a child reaches out, tries to engage with an adult, and nobody responds. They're too busy. If you try to reach out to your siblings, they're too busy doing their own thing. Then shame takes root. And since they could only rely on themselves, that basically can show why you're more prone to anxiety, heightened anxiety than the normal person. You ever sit and think about like, why are these people living their normal lives and they're not as anxious as I am? Like, why am I freaking out over here? What's wrong with me? Neglect as trauma. Another survival adaptation for children of neglect is this tendency to ruminate, to overthink, and also being prone to depression with no hope of improvement. They have these powerful longings for others to provide for them, to show them direction, and to take responsibility for their lives. They want others to do that because they don't believe that they could do that themselves. Because that's the voice of the persistent inner critic. This harsh inner critic always believes that they are at fault with everything. If only I tried harder. If only I were braver. If only I wasn't so stupid. If only I looked prettier. If only I went to that school. If only I was more courageous, then maybe life wouldn't be such a struggle for me. And just remember, this inner critic's job is to always avoid rejection and always to be perceived as good. Take a deep breath. I know this could be very activating. If you need some time to process this, I understand. I needed time to process this as well, but I also want you to finish this video before you leave because I want to give you the slice of hope. Another thing that shows us that we might have been neglected as children or ignored as children is that if we go to somebody, a therapist, a friend, a family member, and tell them our problems and they just don't know how to help us because of our sense of like lack in our progress of living our lives and us feeling like we're useless or that they're useless, like either or, it can go either or. That is called misattunement, like a misfrequency. That is called like, it's not their fault, it's not our fault. It's just the trauma doing its thing, right? And so, how do we fix this? Not fix this. How do we close the loop? How do we complete this so that we can let it go? All it is that we need to know what our needs are. We need to know what our preferences are. We need to give ourselves that space to have preferences, to know what we want, to express our needs, and to allow others to hold us without any shame for ourselves for needing to ask for what we need, like, hey, I need for you to sit with me while I do this or something, right? And not making the other person bad, right, or wrong. But you start to piece together the missing pieces that weren't there for you back then. And what this entails and what this offers is so much more love and respect for yourself, for this inner child. You start to meet your own needs, know what they are first. It's slow and a gentle development that you must give yourself. This deep connection. Another thing that could help with this is creating a sense of safety. If you want to start on your journey for having inner safety, I have my awesome, awesome, awesome course called Sacred Safety. It's self-paced, or you can have one with me coaching you along. It's 8 weeks long, and there's so much information there. But I promise you, you will feel so safe and secure with yourself, like through and through, deep and deep and deep, that you're like, I'm good. The link for that is in the description below. Going back to creating safety, this lack of safety is a developmental deficit that needs to be filled before somebody can go on into individualizing themselves. Meaning, this is something that we weren't given because we didn't know how to express our needs. We didn't know that we didn't need it because we didn't know we didn't know. Nobody took the time to let us know how, put names to our emotions. It's just this whole missing piece of connection that we weren't given as children. I think the most empowering thing is that you can give this sense of safety to yourself and to your body. Having your body and mind work together in unison and not having this inner conflict, right? There's so much of this like fixing the subconscious mind, which is your body, and your conscious mind, which is your mind. There's like all this stuff, and of course we can label all these things, but I think the true thing is that we need to sit down and really feel for it. Feel for the things that we are feeling and allow ourselves to feel safe in just feeling the different hues of life, the different colors, a full spectrum of emotions, and having language around that, without the shame, without the guilt, without attaching our self worth to it. So, these children of neglect actually has a chance, are given the chance to really engage with themselves in ways where they have that profound safety. And I am so, so honored that I get to share this wisdom with my clients, with you all, with anyone that I come in contact with. Anyway, back to our notes here. Never having your developing self reflected in a loving, constructive way, that missing piece that we as neglected children are missing, that we didn't know that we're missing, causes us to live with this underlying terror, this anxiety, this existential dread, this cold emptiness. You ever meet people like that where they're just you ask them how are they doing and they're just like, oh, they literally could not find the words to explain. That wasn't being reflected back to them. You may dismiss or deny your need for safety because you might see it as weak or vulnerable, or like that hustle culture where like I need to strong arm this, I need to white knuckle this because I don't want to appear weak and I don't want to appear like I can't do this myself. But in reality, you need this sense of safety. Like that's also not a way to do it because that's inauthentic, right? And these people may seem high functioning on the outside, like they do get the things that they want, they have the accolades, they have like all the material things that they want on the outside, but on the inside they may be way much more vulnerable, and it's all going to come down one day or another. this stuff piles on. I definitely could speak for myself in my journey. I had everything. I worked for everything. And at the same time, while I was hustling and working, and I will admit, all this hustle and work definitely has me disconnected, not only with my inner, like what I'm feeling, what my preferences are, what my soul craves or needs, missing this piece of play and flow. I can be real and just say, like, that is possible that I neglected my child out of this hustle culture, out of doing what there needs to be done, out of not appearing weak, out of like this whole single mother, like, I got this, I don't need anybody. I can do this myself. And that explains the last 3 years of the pandemic of just having to come to grips with, like, that did not work. It all came tumbling down. It all showed itself. And I am, you know what? I am so grateful for that. When you have to teach yourself how to manage life and be a person never knowing if you are doing it right, often you are more vulnerable to feeling like you're humiliated or feeling like you're always doing things wrong because no one reflected back to you how you're feeling. No one gave you the safe space to just feel, you know? That's why I feel like most of us millennials go to our children and like hold that space for them to say, like, hey, it's okay to feel angry. I understand. Like, we actually take the time to honor their feelings rather than like, oh, you have to stop crying, and then like force us to stop crying, or like there's no reason to cry, or there's blah blah blah. Like, so what is there to do with this shame that we have? This, like, is this wrong? Is this right? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Like, this whole questioning ourselves, we have to name the shame and like normalize it and know that it's just a voice that came with our trauma of neglect. It's this voice that is telling and keeping the story going of us being unwanted, we're unacceptable, or we're unloved. Like, that story, and this is how it gets so insidious, is that voice feels like it's our voice when really it's just our trauma. It is the effect of being neglected as a child. When we can hear ourselves like, is this good? Is this thing that I'm doing good? Is it right or wrong? Like, that voice that goes like, what would they think of me? Or am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Is this wrong? Like, this second guessing part, that is not you. That is the trauma of neglect in your developmental years. The first part to do is to find awareness, and to, now that I've said that and that's clicked in your head, and now you have a name for that, now you're like, oh, that's a younger version of me, the story that I have been telling myself out of being neglected in my developmental years, and that's not who I am now. I am choosing not to keep that story going. I'm choosing not to let that voice be in the driver's seat anymore. And what I'm choosing now is developing my own needs. Like, thank you, voice, for telling me that I'm second guessing myself, because now I get to really choose. I get to really have a preference of how I think, and I can choose to think differently. Yeah? Doesn't that feel more empowering? And this is just practice, guys, not just practice, because practice does it gets hard sometimes, but just know that this contrast, now me telling you all of this information of this video, it gives you a new commitment. And with each new commitment, whether it's healing this neglected child within you, and developing your needs, and then meeting your own needs or expressing your needs to the people in your life now. Oh, once you make that commitment, then what happens next is all of the thing that's in disagreement to it. It's all of the things that are contrast, i.e., the things that don't work with your new commitment. Okay? Try to go for the positive role rather than the fixing bad, wrong, no more demonizing role. Does that make sense? If you take the more loving approach, the more loving position towards yourself for not knowing and having that deep innate grace and compassion, then you can become that guide, that person that you've always needed, that was missing in your early life, that was missing in your developmental years. You get to be that for yourself. And this takes time. And you can invite your partner, your family, your best friends, because I'm sure they also have some sort of this, some patterning of this as well. We all are products of this neglect, you know. You think about how we were brought up where you let the baby cry, you let the baby cry it out back in the day. And I'm sure like there is much respect for all the science and stuff that goes along that, but I think most of us are also understanding that that is also neglecting and ignoring the child's needs. If the child doesn't have words to express why they're crying and they're crying, the only way to let us know that they're not comfortable or their needs are not being met is through crying, then why would we let them cry it out on the crib and be independent? Why are we forcing that? And some of us, majority of us, are products to that type of trauma. And of course, it's not our parents' fault because they didn't know any better. This is the first time parenting, you know? So more grace, more compassion as we go through this towards everybody who contributed to the story and ourselves. Another thing that you can do to have an active role, have an active way to get your needs met, to understand what your needs are and find how to meet them, is you taking the time to find the words to describe your feelings. Knowing that there's, oh yeah, I am feeling something and I don't have the capacity to name that yet because I was a child of neglect and I have neglect trauma. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm going to take the time to find the words to describe how I feel. Whether that means like if you're in conversation and you don't know how it feels and you let the other person know, if you're in conflict and you let the other person know like I'm coming at a stop or like I'm hitting a wall to know how to describe what I feel, but can you give me some more time? That'd be awesome. Things that you can do. Find words to describe your feelings, meaning these sensations that go in your body. Because here's another thing, remember that your emotions are generated by your organs. Thus, feeling the sensations in your body, staying with it, not repressing it, not diminishing it, not dismissing it, but actually give it the space it needs to express itself. And then you find your own words to describe that. It would help if you keep a journal. I like to find this feedback with myself through like video, just documentation, and then looking at it without judgment, knowing that I'm in this space that's new for me. And that alone is awesome that I could do that. You can also develop trust. When you're creating a safety with yourself, you're essentially developing this inner trust. A clue to know that this all is working and that you're healing and that you're healing parts of yourself that has been neglected is actually enjoying being with yourself and you actually tolerate people looking at you or feeling seen without shame. Like that voice of shame is not there. Like, oh my God, why are they looking at me? Like, well, you know, anything like that. That voice is no longer there. You can actually tolerate being seen. And that's when you know, like, holy shit, I got myself, I got my back, I feel safe. Yee! And your inner critic's not there. And even then, when you hear other people's criticism, it doesn't even hurt you anymore. Because you know that's coming from their inner critic because you have done the work with your inner critic and then you can give them compassion. I love that. This is really cool. Super, super cool. The last thing I want to say is that your body will take a lot longer than your mind to comprehend something. to understand something thoroughly. So it's going to take a lot more time than your mind is telling you it's going to take. Things like this does not work with a goal time. Yes, you can have the intention to set a goal to finally fully release all of this, but the body works non-linearly. Non-linearly, meaning there's an adventure here. It's not a linear path where, like, if I do this and this and this, then it's going to give me this and I'm going to go up here. I'm going to finish up here. I'm going to feel so much better up here. It's more of like this way down. Some days it's down, some days it's up, some days it starts down and then goes up, some days it goes up and then goes back down and up again. It's a beautiful ride, and we need to allow our bodies to do their thing and to honor it, because we have been taught not to honor our body's sensations and signals, and it's really getting to us. And that is why I show up in the ways that I do, like as far as like content goes, and all of that, because I think that people need this information, and I think that people need other people to think that they're not crazy for feeling the ways that they feel, and that you're supposed to be who you are. And if society or like is so brainwashed and you're the only one that is like thinking differently, I'm here for you. I will honor you. And please honor your body. Listen to its signals. The emotions are just indicators of how far or how close you are with alignment, in alignment to your essence, your spirit, your soul, your creativity, your flow, this magnetism, this ease. You have access to that. And being in your own way means finding out about things like this and being empowered by it, empowered to take action, inspired to take action, for things to look differently for you to grow, essentially, elevate. And why is this important? Is because it's going to be passed on to the next generation and the next one and the next one. So if we want the world to feel a lot lighter, a lot more clear, a lot more joyful, a lot more pleasant to interact with, we got to go through this stuff. And we can go through this stuff together. You're not alone. You're not alone. So, as a reminder, I have the Sacred Safety course ready for you, self paced. You can start whenever you want. You can go at your own pace. You can digest it. It's a lot of information, so allow yourself time. It comes with homework. I don't want to say homework, like home play, an invitation for you to play and honor your body. It comes with a lot of breath work, embodiment exercises, demo videos, things like that, music, all this really good, juicy stuff. I worked so intimately with God, Source, Spirit, the universe, creating this sacred safety, and it has impacted so many people's lives already. So, if you feel called, if your heart is like an all yes, then click the link in my bio. Thank you so much for your time. Let me know if there's any questions, leave them in the comments section below. Or if you want to discuss more about this or have a part 2 to this interesting topic, comments down below. I'll see you guys on my next video.